Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dan, and this is Forlorn Hobbies.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, today's video, I'm going to be reflecting on the experiences of the recent Under Eagles to Glory event at Boards and Swords in Derby that was put on by Mr. Napoleonic Wargaming himself, Tim. However, it will be slightly different to how I had initially planned to do this because, as I've spoken about briefly, was working on quite a lot of things for this event, and unfortunately, life comes at you with kind of roadblocks when you not necessarily least expect it, but when you don't want it to happen. And it's safe to say that I failed again spectacularly to get everything done for this year. So who knows, hopefully next year, third time lucky, I might actually be okay and get things done for it. Now, everything was kind of playable and ready, but about a week before the event, I was struck down with the plague. Well, not quite as dramatic as the plague, but man flu, very close second in dangerous illnesses. And I was unsure whether I was able to make the event. So I said to Tim that it's best to kind of plan without me, and managed to ask Ian to source some alternative terrain instead, and he did a fantastic job in doing that. Now, all week I was willing myself to be well enough to be able to attend in some capacity, just because the atmosphere of the event is always great to experience. And even on the Friday, I was kind of unsure that I would be able to make it. But Saturday morning came and I felt probably about 90% recovered. So decided to take the trip down to Derby and experience as much as I could for the weekend. Now, thankfully, I only really missed about an hour or two of the first round. So I pretty much got most of the experience that I was hoping for from the event anyway. And it was really great to see everyone again. Although I mistimed my journey and I committed that rookie error that you all do when planning your travel, and I did not look to see if Derby County were playing at home that day, so I got stuck in some horrendous football-related traffic. So I'll live and learn from that experience again. Now, a little bit about the event itself. I wasn't intending to play in it. I was having more of a supportive role this year, but it was a 600-point Napoleonic black powder event. Now, black powder isn't really a competitive game in the sense of things, so it wasn't marketed as a competitive event. It was very much more of an event that brought people with very shared and similar interests together to have a good weekend of fun. Now, the pack provided kind of narrative missions that Tim had kind of come up with, and it was very much along the same kind of lines as previous years, although there were obviously a few tweaks for the better, just kind of from experience kind of learning and tweaking the document as it goes along. And I'm sure for next year, there'll be a few improvements, but relatively the same great experience that we've all had. And it was at Boards and Swords in Derby once again. Now, Boards and Swords is a good little venue, fantastic staff. They always put on good event support, have lunch included, and there's also accommodation nearby, so it makes it very accessible for people travelling to this event. Now, talking of travelling, it was great to see Emil travel all the way from Switzerland again, and it was great to have a catch up with him over the weekend, as amongst many other people. Now, probably my favourite aspect of kind of having a supporting role at the event is that it allows me to kind of wander around and take in everyone's kind of gaming experience and their enjoyment, rather than just focusing on my own playing time and that. And it allows me to go and look at all the fantastic hobby that has been done over the past year, seeing like kind of progress on armies when people return. I think Kyle had finally finished his British force that he'd brought from the first year, and it looked really good to see on the tabletop. And I know he was very happy that he had finally finished it. To like kind of the opposite end of the scale with Rob and his Spanish, who I think started the project because last year he won a box or two of Spanish-related kits from the prize support, and he churned out a truly impressive looking Spanish army, kind of with lots of subtle kind of tributes to Sharp. His vignette was Sharp and his friends raising the banner of Santiago above the chapel, and just little bits here and there with like that extra level of thought put into how his battalions were presented, his artillery crew with the I forget her name, but like the heroic female resistance in the peninsula. And it was just a truly stunning job and well worthy of winning the best coalition painting thing. So hopefully we'll see him do something with the prize support that he got this year and turn up with something completely new and stunning next time. Now, there are obviously many more incredible looking armies. Mitchell had brought Austrians once again, and he'd actually managed to paint a couple of stands, which for him I thought was a fantastic achievement. And one day he might just finish the army and we'll see it in all its glory on the tabletop. Now, one thing that I find interesting, kind of looking back on the Under Eagle to Glory events as a whole, is kind of the fluctuation of the representation of different nations at the event. Now, I think the first year was dominated by Russians. I think Russians were the most popular. And then last year, we had a huge swing to the British, where I think half of all attendees brought a British army. And this year, I think returned to being a little bit more balanced. I mean, there was a lot of British, but there was also Russians, Austrians. There wasn't really a standout, clear favourite. And I think it's good to kind of keep that variety going. Now, obviously, there are some people that have brought the same armies every year, and that is great to see. But someone who has been, should we say, a trendsetter with his army selection, bringing a fantastic Russian army in the first year, a nice looking British army in the second year. Now, this year, bringing French, and I think it was the highest attended French kind of players this year as well, was James with his kind of Waterloo Guard French list. And I think just watching his games throughout the weekend, sometimes there was not a Frenchman in sight, and other times there was just a sea of Frenchmen on the tabletop. Now, he deservedly won best French army for the painting, and I'm looking forward to see what he brings next year, because undoubtedly the kind of sixth sense of people will be tingling and follow him in that direction. And so hopefully we'll see him bring something like Neapolitans, and they'll have 5 or 6 other people bringing Neapolitans, and it will be a great weekend. But the kind of standout army for me, not necessarily on painting style, although it did look great, but special thanks must go to child labour in that instance, was Mr. Crew bringing his Ottomans this year. Now, because there are no official rules for the Ottoman army, supported by Warlord, Tim has taken it upon himself quite a while ago now to write a Ottoman-themed supplement for Black Powder. And it's always interesting to see someone kind of take these kind of niche ideas and kind of run with it in a way that just to see kind of like how it actually plays out on the tabletop. And from watching the games, I think it was, I mean, there could be a few tweaks, but I think on the whole, they worked as Tim intended, and I think they were quite reasonable on the tabletop in terms of they didn't look too out of place, and I think a lot of their misfortune came down to Ian not having to made his sacrifices to the dice gods, and maybe his luck could have been slightly better, but it looked like it was a very fun army to play, and I think Ian is still very happy with them and had a great weekend. Now, talking of Ottomans and home supplements, I think the inclusion is a great idea, and I can't really see any negatives when done right, because it widens that kind of scope of opponents, allows more creativity, and kind of appeals to kind of people's more niche interests. So, unlike that kind of collective side, I know Ian's already discussing doing some French to fight his Ottomans in like the Egyptian campaign. You've got Tim's 1812 American supplement as well that could be covered. But I think the need for this kind of highlights potential areas of future support to Warlord as well. Leipzig is screaming out for the book to be released. Even looking at 1809 as an Austrian player myself, I would love to see a Wagram book, because the Austrians in that campaign performed very differently to the Austrians that we have rules for in 1812. Just as going even further back for like 1806, Ulm, Jena, that kind of theatre of war, the Austrians, Prussians, Saxons, even the French performed entirely differently again on the tabletop. So it'd be nice to see a bit more variety because, I mean, yeah, an Austrian is an Austrian, but like just giving it a little bit more flavour to represent that era would make it a little bit different and much more kind of fun when you have those mirror matches. So like, oh, I'm for Austrians, let's just have an Austrian civil war because that's how they've been drawn in the event. But it could be, oh, actually, I've got 1806 Austrians versus 1812 Austrians. So it's a different experience for both sides, would be my kind of thoughts looking forward. Now, I think looking at the representation for the event, we had a good mix. You had Emil bringing his Württembergers again, and they look stunning from what he has finished. And I just wish that he could hurry up and finish them so I can see them in all their glory at next year's event. We had Spanish, Brunswickers, Russians, Austrians, French, Ottomans. Prussians returned with James bringing them. He attended the first event but was not there last year. But it was good to see him commanding his beloved Prussians once again. It's always a joy to see that army on the tabletop, as much as I have a personal grudge against Prussians, should we say. But I don't think there was many mirror matches. There were a few British on British, I think. But on the whole, I would hopefully like to see next year a little bit more to be done to avoid those kind of mirror matches. Now, the only real thing left to kind of discuss about the event is the, once again, fantastic prize support available. And I think this year was just the next level. Not only did Warlord Games send like a package, like as they have done previously, the guys at, I want to say, Sarissa and Wargames Atlantic provided everyone with a box of the new plastic French that Piano Miniatures have done in collab with them, which was great and very unexpected because Tim kept that very hush-hush even to me. So that was nice to see. But kind of when it comes to prize support, Tim's very clear about it not being a competitive event. So the prize support isn't for who won the most games necessarily. There are spot prizes in each round where like kind of little novelty acts like who's the first to capture a colour or who does the first blunder and stuff like that, which like kind of minor prize support. And then you have more of a focus on the hobbying, the sportsmanship and the likes, that like kind of reward the better qualities, should we say, of attendees rather than who can beat the most people into submission that you would get at, say, a 40k event, for example. Now, another good thing about this was that this year, one of the people that works for Warlord's event team was there predominantly for the whole weekend. And it was great to have the opportunity to chat to him for a bit, just to kind of hear his thoughts on Black Powder as a whole and like kind of how the event is good at kind of publicizing it, but also in like him looking at the way and kind of getting an understanding of his like kind of thoughts of where black powder, and particularly like let's say the Napoleonic era of black powder, sits on kind of being presented. Now, Warlord is very bolt action driven, and they've just released the new futuristic version of it. I cannot remember the name, and he was saying how like that's a very easy game to market because it's competitive. There are events up and down the country, but the intent behind games like Black Powder, Hail Caesar, Pike and Shot isn't for a competitive nature. It's more giving you like a set of rules to be able to recreate things. So we had a very good discussion about like kind of finding a balance to make it competitive. Like so with the points, for example, gives you a balanced game that people can bring armies to, which is a huge selling point for points. I think I've mentioned that in a previous video. But alternatively, you've got like the option of putting on a kind of big game or gaming weekend, a bit like the Great Game that was done quite a few years ago now, where you pick a battle and then people kind of sign up to contribute towards it. And that kind of discussion has got me thinking that like the event that Tim puts on is obviously points based, like points based, and it will automatically turn off a substantial group of historical gamers, not because they don't want to play Black Powder, but they don't want to have the feel of it being a competitive event when it shouldn't be. And but I think putting on a weekend where, let's say, everyone is going to do, like, you know, there could be like a sign-up list, like the Great Game, where you put, I don't know, let's say we're going to do Salamanca, and then you break up the All Bats into brigades or even divisions, and people will turn up bringing their allocated brigade with them that they play with as part of that one big game over the weekend. And I think you'd find a completely different crowd that are willing to do that. There's some people that are very easygoing. I'd like to consider myself in that category. Would love to play historical refights. I'm also happy to play games that allow me to just enjoy the moment of gaming with an opponent and having our kind of shared historical interest be kind of like fought out over on the tabletop. Now, I think having those two distinct camps for historical gaming makes it quite hard for like the parent company, in this case Warlord, to kind of settle on a event strategy. So it often gets overlooked because you'll obviously have the bad opinion if you push it as competitive. You'll have bad opinion if it's just unfair, because predominantly historical battles were never fair in terms of equal men, gunpowder, arms, munitions, etc. It was never finely balanced. So hopefully, like him coming along, experiencing the event, like the kind of the attitude that everyone approached it with, would enable some kind of separate push from Warlord to maybe try and build a wider kind of events community of some sort in the future, although I wouldn't necessarily be that optimistic about it happening. But with wishful thinking, who knows what could happen. And I think with that, I think I'll wrap up the video now. As I say, the event is always great fun, and I hope to see everyone again next year, and even some new faces. But just want to leave you with the kind of my final kind of question would be: would you rather, in a historical context, go to an event that would introduce you to new people, where you play the kind of balance game that isn't necessarily historically accurate? Or would you rather go to an event where you kind of signed up and was part of a wider kind of team, should we say, that was recreating a historical fight? So I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts and perceptions on that. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, enjoy your hobby.